Many patriots and nationalists in the United Kingdom, just as in America, have been duped into supporting the State of Israel. Often, these people refer to Israel as a great ally to the West, or the West's only ally in the Middle East. In fact, nothing could be further from the truth. For anyone who considers themselves a British nationalist, admiration for Israel is particularly strange, as many of the men and women who were instrumental in the founding of the Israeli state advanced their cause through a series of bloody terrorist attacks, many of which were aimed at British targets. One particular individual, and the terrorist group he led, was central in the formation of the Zionist state. That man was the terrorist Menachem Begin, and the group he led was Irgun. But what should be particularly noteworthy to British nationalists is that Menachem Begin and Irgun murdered over 150 British citizens, as well as wounding over 500 others, most of which were British service personnel. However, Irgun's crimes were not simply limited to murdering British troops. Irgun terrorists were involved in other horrific terrorist atrocities, most notably the Deir Yassin massacre. The Deir Yassin massacre took place on April 9, 1948, when around 130 members of two Zionist terrorist groups, Irgun and Lehi, killed 254 Palestinian Arabs, including women and children, in Deir Yassin, a village of roughly 600 people near Jerusalem. Terrorists from the Irgun and Lehi groups surrounded the village before dawn, before advancing. They went from street to street, house to house, murdering every man, woman and child that they could. In addition to murdering the Arab occupants, there was widespread looting, cases of mutilation, and even rape. After the massacre took place, Arabs that had been taken prisoner were executed, some after being paraded through the streets of West Jerusalem. Yet Menachem Begin, a man involved in the deaths of dozens of British troops, and the man who led a group of Irgun terrorists as they massacred, raped and tortured women and children in Deir Yassin, was elected as the 6th Prime Minister of Israel and served in office between the 21st of June 1977 and the 10th of October 1983. But despite rising to the highest elected office in Israel, Menachem Begin was known to the British government as a terrorist, and in the 1950s he was on a UK blacklist, and as a result was banned from entering the country. The UK government classified him as, and I quote, the leader of the notorious terrorist organisation Irgun, end quote. This block on travel into the UK was in no small part due to the notorious terrorist bombing of the King David Hotel, which was situated in what was then called Palestine. Disguised as Arab workmen and as hotel waiters, members of Irgun planted a bomb in the basement of the main building of the hotel, the southern wing of which housed the Mandate Secretariat and offices used as British military headquarters. The resulting explosion caused the collapse of the western half of the southern wing of the hotel, killing 91 and wounding a further 46. And to this day, the bombing of the King David Hotel is celebrated in Israel. In July 2006, the Menachem Begin Heritage Centre organised a conference to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the bombing. The conference was attended by past and future Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former members of Irgun. A plaque commemorating the bombing was unveiled, stating, "For reasons known only to the British, the hotel was not evacuated." Not only do leading Israeli politicians still celebrate this atrocity, but they have the audacity to blame the British for the deaths. However, the wording on the plaque was later changed to, and I quote, "Warning phone calls has been made to the hotel, the Palestine Post and the French consulate, urging the hotel's occupants to leave immediately. The hotel was not evacuated, and after 25 minutes, the bombs exploded. To the Irgun's regret, 92 persons were killed." End quote. You might have noticed a small discrepancy there. Israelis count 92 victims of the bombing, whereas I counted 91. The reason they count 92 is that they include the death of one of the terrorists who was shot whilst fleeing the scene. Imagine that, counting a terrorist murderer among the victims of a terrorist attack because he was shot dead as he was fleeing the scene of the crime. But the King David Hotel bombing was not the only terrorist attack carried out by Irgun that targeted British troops. In 1946, Irgun killed 49 British soldiers and 28 British policemen, some of them while they were sleeping in their tent in a military car park in Tel Aviv. In 1947, Irgun bombed the Goldsmith Officers Club in Jerusalem, killing 13. On April the 18th to April the 22nd of the same year, Irgunists attacked a medical dressing station, a Red Cross movie house, and the Cairo-Haifa train. Altogether, 6 more were killed in these terrorist attacks. On July the 24th, Irgun terrorists hanged 2 British soldiers after kidnapping them as hostages. On September the 10th, they killed 4 British policemen while robbing the Barclays Bank in Tel Aviv. On September the 29th, they killed 9 policemen in a bomb attack on the Haifa police headquarters. During the same year, letter bombs, which failed to detonate, were sent to the British Prime Minister Clement Attlee, the Foreign Secretary Ernest Bevin, and Winston Churchill. In 1948, after Britain announced it was giving up its mandate in Palestine, Irgun and other Zionist terrorist organisations killed 37 British soldiers and airmen. Many of these horrific crimes have been almost airbrushed from history, their victims forgotten. In fact, in the case of the Deir Yassin massacre, despite the kill count of 254 being the number stated by Irgun terrorists in the wake of the attack as they gloated over the massacre, today Israeli scholars have repeatedly questioned these numbers and revised them downward, with some Israeli sources even going as far as to claim that the massacre never happened at all. So next time you hear a supposed British nationalist talking about how much they support British service personnel, and in the same breath praising the state of Israel, maybe you can put them straight. Israel was not simply founded by peaceful settlers who wanted their own place in the world. The Zionist state was carved out in blood by terrorist groups who not only massacred and raped Palestinians, but also routinely murdered British troops. And the leader of these terrorists, Menachem Begin, he went on to be rewarded and honoured for his crimes by the people of Israel when they elected him as their 6th Prime Minister. When Begin died in 1992, an estimated 75,000 people attended his funeral. To this day, he is seen as a hero to the Israeli people, and the aforementioned Menachem Begin Heritage Centre exists as an official state memorial to celebrate his achievements and preserve his legacy.